Locked on. I'm hit.
After playing Star Wars Squadrons, I don't understand why it took this long for someone to make another Star Wars flight sim. It's been 21 years since X-Wing Alliance, which was the end of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter series, and Star Wars Squadrons makes me a little mad, honestly, that in some alternate timeline we could have been playing similar games all along.
Rebel scum!
Squadrons is proof that getting in a cockpit and blasting through a space dogfight is still one of the best ways to experience Star Wars. So last week I played about 3 hours of Star Wars Squadrons in an early demo that focused mostly on its multiplayer mode. There's also a single player campaign which you can play from the perspective of the Empire and the New Republic. Of that I only played the prologue, but the developers told me that the campaign will have bespoke missions to go along with the story. That was reassuring because Squadrons seems like it's largely going to live on as a multiplayer game, and I was a little worried that the campaign might just be dressing up the same modes with a few cutscenes in between. That's not a knock against the multiplayer though, which is how I spent most of my time with Squadrons, and I really want to play more. There are two ways to play multiplayer. 5v5 dogfights, basically your straightforward flight sim version of Team Deathmatch, and fleet battles, which are what I'm going to focus on. Fleet battles are also 5v5, but you and your teammates are thrown into a large-scale tug-of-war fight between two flagships, with capital ships in between, and a bunch of AI fighters flying around to up the scale of the battle. Fleet battles are Squadron's showcase mode, and probably what the majority of players will spend their time on. Dogfighting is lower investment and a good way to learn the basics, but the scope and added strategy of fleet battles makes them a lot more engaging. Here's the gist of how it works. At the start of the match, the two teams butt heads in a dogfight and start scoring kills against enemy players and AI TIE Fighters or X-Wings. There's a meter for each team's morale, and getting kills, especially against other players, fills up the meter for your side. Once you pass a certain threshold, you can move forward to attack two enemy capital ships, which are heavily armed and armored compared to your fighter, and they'll take a while to bring down. Now, if your team dies too many times in the process, then the morale meter will sway back in the other direction, and you'll have to pull back and go on defense until you earn enough kills to go on the offensive again. The final stage, once you destroy the two capital ships, is to attack the enemy flagship, which is a big cruiser for the Republic or a Star Destroyer for the Empire. Like in the classic Star Wars flight sims, to take down these ships you need to destroy certain weak points, like the shield generators or the power systems for the turrets, so it's a multi-step process. And again, you can still get pushed back and have to go on the defensive, and the turrets on the flagships can take you down really fast if you're not careful. I like the structure of the fleet battles a lot, because they give each team a chance to make a comeback, and you can't just brute force your way to a win. Because dying gives the other team points, you can't just suicide run at the flagship. There also seems to be a decent amount of strategy in how you approach each stage of the battle. For example, every few minutes, each team will send an AI attack cruiser into battle that can help you push forward into enemy space. Now, destroying one of these is worth a lot of points on the morale meter, but they're also likely to kill you if you don't attack them with a coordinated team, which would then end up giving your opponents the advantage. On the flagships, there's really no correct order for what to destroy first, so defenders won't always know exactly what you're going for. Plus, you're in space, there are a lot of directions to come from. Ultimately, the fleet battles just add some structure and scale to the basic act of flying a starfighter in Star Wars Squadrons, and from what I played, that experience is pretty great. It feels like a robust flight sim that's still pretty approachable. You don't have as many controls to worry about as you would in a game like Elite Dangerous, but the fundamentals here are strong. So you have to actively manage your power system between shields, weapons, and engine to suit the moment. You can also rebalance your shields from front to back with a button press, which will help more skilled players survive dogfights. Aiming your standard laser cannons doesn't give you any kind of leading target reticule to tell you exactly where you should be shooting, so you're going to have to get a feel for that yourself, figuring out the speed and distance to your target. There's a sweet spot in your throttle speed that makes you turn faster, which is key for avoiding missiles or other players that are tracking you. I played Squadrons on an Xbox gamepad, because unfortunately the demo version didn't have full hands-on throttle and stick support yet. The joystick worked, throttle didn't. The joystick definitely feels like the right way to experience this game though. I did pretty well with the pad, but it was pretty hard to wrap my head around moving efficiently in 3D space on a controller. That's a big part of the learning curve for any flight sim though, and honestly I'm glad that Star Wars Squadrons feels sophisticated enough that it'll probably take me many hours to get good at it. Long term, Squadrons seems like it's relying on its ship customization system to create variety in multiplayer. You can unlock a ton of different laser cannons, missiles, shields, countermeasures, even hulls for both the Republic and Imperial ships, and these can really change how you play. Like, you can pick a shield that offers less defense but speeds up how fast your lasers charge, or even one that makes you take way less damage but never recharge if fully depleted. There are laser cannons that offer some auto-aim, but they don't hit as hard. There are rockets that can't lock on, but give you tons of ammo, and there are others that take ages to lock on, but they can do big damage to capital ships. Any of these could really change up how you play, especially when you factor in playing with 4 friends with similarly tweaked out ships. My one real worry with Squadrons is if fleet battles and deathmatch are going to be enough to keep its multiplayer going long term. This is a $40 game, the developers aren't pitching it as some game as a service model where new stuff is constantly being added. I think it's likely to get updates if it's a success, but I would love to see just a bit more scale and variety to the combat situations. Flying up to a giant Star Destroyer is legitimately awesome. I can't overstate how good this game looks in the Frostbite engine, but I would love to see EA bring in the Super Star Destroyer or attacks on a space station. Something huge that really sells how tiny your fighter is in comparison. I hope Squadrons gets the opportunity to expand, because what I've played of it is really promising. Star Wars Squadrons is coming out on PC on October 2nd, and it will include full VR and joystick support, though sadly I didn't get to try out either in this early build. For more on the game, including another video where I break down every instrument of the fighter's cockpit, check out PCGamer.com.